The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be fun because it is about one of my favorite subjects and my favorite time periods. I am a huge fan of the Middle Ages and knights and dragons, and that whole scene is really awesome. And I especially love the tales of King Arthur and Merlin. And Merlin ties into the article that we're going to be presenting tonight. Tonight's article comes from express.co.uk, and the headline is Stonehenge Mystery. Ancient Welsh Find Raises Credibility of 900-Year-Old Merlin Legend. It's written by Callum Hoare, and it was published February 12th, 2021. Stonehenge experts believe they have solved the mystery of the ancient monument's origins with a second stone circle found in Wales, raising the possibility that a 900-year-old Merlin legend had some credibility. Archaeologists believe a dismantled stone circle in West Wales is likely to have been used as the original building blocks for Stonehenge. Excavations and analysis of the site at Wan Mon in the Pressley Hills dated the stone circle to around 3400 BC, making it the oldest found in Britain. They believe the stones could have been dismantled in Wales and rebuilt 150 miles away at the site now seen today in Salisbury, Wiltshire. Several of the monoliths are of the same rock type, and one of the blue stones at Stonehenge has an unusual cross-section, which matches one of the holes left at Wan Mon. The investigation was part of the Stones of Stonehenge research project, led by Professor Mike Parker Pearson of University College London, and his discovery was made while filming for BBC Two's Stonehenge, The Lost Circle Revealed. The monument's mysterious past has spawned countless tales and theories, but according to a legend first recorded 900 years ago, the wizard Merlin led men to Ireland to capture a magical stone circle called the Giant's Dance. Geoffrey of Monmouth Tale states that he then had it rebuilt in England as a memorial to the dead. His account has been dismissed, partly because he was wrong on other historical facts, but the new breakthrough suggests the blue stones of the monument came from a region of Wales that was considered Irish territory in his day. But Professor Parker Pearson believes the new discovery raises the possibility that a 900-year-old legend about Stonehenge being built from an earlier stone circle contains a grain of truth. Experts now theorize that Stonehenge was transported by the Neolithic civilization to become Britain's first monument to unification in 3000 BC. Radiocarbon dating previously suggested the structure was second-hand, and its smaller blue stones stood for 4 centuries in another location, after being quarried in South Wales. While it is unlikely to have been Merlin who moved the stones, the new discovery raises the credibility that they were transported from Wales and served as the foundation of the monument. Professor Parker Pearson believes it is possible that people moving eastward and bringing their cultural crown jewels with them from ancestral homelands in Wales is a likely theory. It is already known that the smaller bluestones that were first used to build Stonehenge were transported from 150 miles away in modern-day Pembrokeshire. But Wanmon is now being tipped as a likely origin point because it lies next to quarries where Stonehenge's smaller bluestones originate. Its perimeter ditch has the same diameter, and it also aligned with the midsummer solstice sunrise. Archaeologists believe this could explain why the bluestones were brought from so far away, while most circles are usually constructed within a short distance of their quarries. And that would make sense, because you don't want to have to drag them big-ass rocks that far. It also confirms that the region was an important and densely settled area in Neolithic times, until it appears to have ceased in 3000 BC. DNA and archaeological evidence suggest Wanmon's Neolithic population suddenly vanished in a migration from what is now Wales into southern England. Professor Parker Pearson said, "It's as if they just vanished. Maybe most of those people migrated, taking their stones, their ancestral identities with them." With only a few of the Stonehenge stones directly linked to Wanmon, the archaeologist believes monoliths from other stone circles could have been taken from Wales to form part of the new monument. Professor Parker Pearson said, "With an estimated 80 bluestones put up on Salisbury Plain at Stonehenge and nearby Blue Stonehenge, my guess is that Wanmon was not the only stone circle that contributed to Stonehenge. Maybe there are more in Presley waiting to be found. Who knows? Someone will be lucky enough to find them." And then it talks about the show Stonehenge Lost Circle revealed on BBC. Tells like when you can see it, but this was in February, so it's already aired. And that is the end of this article. Now, this one, to me, is very, very interesting because there's always been debate and there's always been tons of theories of what Stonehenge was actually for. We know that it has to have some sort of religious connotation, religious use, because of the orientation of Stonehenge. It is designed in such a way that it actually faces the summer solstice. It's orientated towards the sunrise of the summer solstice. So that means something to the pagan people. There's a reason they do that, because the winter and summer solstice and all that, that's a big deal to those guys. So it would be fairly reasonable to theorize that Stonehenge was some sort of religious structure. But I don't think that was the sole use. They talk about in the legend that Merlin had it done and had it built as a way to honor the dead and a way to unify all of England. And when he talks about England, I believe they're talking about all of the Celtic countries. We're talking Ireland, Scotland, all that whole area in there. And that would make sense, because what they're finding today is that Stonehenge is made up of stones from several different stone circles. So these other stone circles were already in place in other countries. And they took some of the stones and brought them to build Stonehenge. So it would make sense to me that Stonehenge was kind of a community project for all of the nations, something that they could build together, a giant monument that would help to unify all of the Celtic countries, because they would all have a part in it, and they would all have a piece of their own stone circles in the large Stonehenge. I think that makes a lot of sense. But as I said, it has some sort of religious connotation as well for the pagans, because of the orientation for the sunrise of the summer solstice. I'm not exactly sure what that means or what that would be used for, what kind of ceremonies they would do during that time. I have no idea. I'm not a pagan myself. I'm a Christian. Maybe when Old Boy comes on, he can fill us in a little bit about that. I don't know, because Old Boy does paganism and he's done Wiccan before, and there's differences between them all. And I'm not exactly an expert in that category, so I'm not going to kind of speak out of my butt on it. But I've always loved the tale of King Arthur. I've always loved the stories of Merlin because he was, I mean, everybody knows who Merlin is. I don't have to explain to you who King Arthur was and who Merlin is. But it always fascinated me because I've always loved the idea of dragons and knights and that whole time period of chivalry and going on these noble quests to try to bring back holy relics or try to defeat dragons or monsters and all that kind of stuff. I've always loved it. That's why I also really enjoy the Greek mythologies, because there's a lot of that too, where you're talking about Jason and the Argonauts and all that, and Hercules, his task that he had to go complete, and Perseus. There's a lot of that in Greek mythology as well. I really enjoy those kind of stories. And Arthur was always one that fascinated me because we don't know whether it's a story or not. That's the main thing. We don't know. Some people say that Merlin never existed. Some people say King Arthur never existed. That they were simply made up legends and stories that were told. And then there are other people that say that they did exist, and even that possibly they might have been able to find King Arthur's grave, which is pretty amazing. Now, they haven't been able to prove conclusively that the grave that they found belonged to King Arthur, but they think that it might have. Now, when I say some people say this, some people say that, I don't mean just the random guy on Facebook or whatever who speaks up and argues with you and doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. I'm talking about experts in the field, people that study this stuff, archaeologists, and people that do this for a living, scientists that study these old legends and try to go on archaeological digs to find relics and to find actual evidence and proof of these legends. Those are the people I'm talking about when I say some people say that he existed, some people say that he didn't. I hope that he did. I absolutely love the tales of King Arthur, and not just because of the fighting the dragon thing and you know, the magic of Merlin and all that. I really like it, honestly, for the Round Table. I think that is what really drew me in to the story of King Arthur. The Round Table and Excalibur pulling the sword from the stone. Because you had to be pure at heart and you had to be the rightful God chosen king in order to pull that sword from the stone. And the Round Table was extremely significant because in those times, what a king said went. And you didn't argue with the king. Now, there were exceptions to that. When I say that, I mean like the peasants didn't, the normal people didn't, the common folk. But the king and really all of nobility and all of royalty, like the king, the queen, the princes, the princesses, they derived their power from the lesser nobility. So you had like dukes and duchesses and barons, all the different landowners, the people that had tracts of land and they had their own little villages on there, and they had their own little armies, and those are the people that would actually support the king and lend their troops to the king to have the king's army, all that kind of stuff. So in reality, the king kind of, I'm not going to say he answered to the lesser nobles, but he definitely couldn't piss them off. He had to watch what he said, and he had to kind of play politics with them a little bit to keep them happy. Because if they withdrew all their support, he's kind of up a creek. And so the idea of the Round Table to me was super cool because here you had a bunch of knights. These weren't noblemen. Okay, these weren't dukes and duchesses and people of nobility that wore fancy clothes and drank fancy wine and all that kind of stuff. These were soldiers. These were knights. People that went out and fought wars for the king and went on quests for the king and stuff like that. And up to this point, they were just soldiers. They did what they were told, and they were, I don't want to say viewed as expendable, but definitely they didn't raise to the level of even a lesser nobleman, much less actual royalty. But in the story of King Arthur, you had the round table where there was no head of the table. So what that signified was that everybody's voice was equal at that table. And they would talk things through and they would vote and make a decision together. And that was groundbreaking for that time period. And it was just inspiring to read about that as a child. I really enjoyed that part of the stories of Arthur. So do I think that Merlin actually existed? Do I think that King Arthur actually existed? Possibly. I think that there's a good chance that there was an actual King Arthur. And I think there was a good chance that he did actually have an advisor and like a healer and everything named Merlin. Now, would I go so far as to say Merlin was some wizard that could conjure all these creatures and shoot fireballs and all this kind of stuff like you see in the movies? I highly doubt it. Most likely what Merlin was a guy that knew herbs and could make potions to heal you. And it wasn't a whole lot mystical about it, I don't think. I think it was just a knowledge of the local fauna and plant life, and that he understood the medicinal qualities of different plants, and he could mix up potions that would make you feel better and heal certain ailments. Now, I think that's probably the nugget of truth at the base of the Arthur stories and the Arthur legends. They have grown, obviously, as legends always do, to where you have the Lady in the Lake, and you have the Sword in the Stone, and you have, tales of Merlin doing battle and shooting fire from his staff and all this cool stuff. Most likely, they were exaggerations. But I think the kernel of truth, that little nugget of truth that we always talk about, would lie with Arthur being real. And I think that because there are prominent and respected historians that believe that. And they've even gone so far as to say that there is evidence of Arthur's grave, that there's writings about where he was buried, and they think they might have even located the grave. So that is just next level awesome. And I think that it's true. I think that he lived, and I think that Merlin existed as well. I think that the tales got exaggerated, as they often do, but I think that they are based on a real-life king and his real-life advisor. Now, do I think that this legend of Stonehenge that we talked about in this article was Merlin getting them to do this? Maybe Merlin had a part in it. I mean, I could definitely see that. If the idea of building Stonehenge was to take stones from all these different stone circles, which were like little religious sites in these different countries, where they would go and do their rituals and whatever during the solstices and all that. If the idea was to take stones from each one of those and build a massive stone circle with multiple rings that they could have ceremonies in, and it would represent each of the countries in the English Empire there, it would make sense that that would be a decision that a king would make to try to unify all these different countries into one. And if a king is going to make a decision that large and that important, if Merlin was his advisor, then I'm sure that he talked it over with him. And it might even have been Merlin's idea, because Merlin might have been more into the paganism thing than Arthur was. And he might have said, hey, look, man, this is very important to these countries. These holy sites are super important. So if you can take a piece of each of them and build a giant one here, and everybody can come here and do their stuff together, then that is a great way of unifying people. And it just makes sense to me. So when this show hits YouTube, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about that. Do you think that Arthur and Merlin existed? Do you think that Stonehenge was built as a place to do the religious ceremonies and a place to honor the dead, but also was constructed to unify all of the different countries in the area around England into one big Celtic people? It just makes sense to me. So as I said, let me know down in the comments what you think. And now I'm going to throw over to Old Boy, and I'm going to see what he has to say about it. And I don't want to put him on the spot as far as the solstices and everything. But whatever he is comfortable talking about would be great. And essentially, what I really want to know, the main thing I want to know about it, is what exactly is that all about anyway? What do they do at the winter and summer solstices to have a ceremony for? What's it for? Like to bring a bountiful harvest or what? I really don't know much about it, and I always like to learn. So, old boy, go ahead, brother.
Well, first thing, I'm not going to get into religious because of the certain things. I will talk a little bit about Stonehenge. We'll get into that, and then we'll talk about Merlin because that's what I'm going to get to after that. Because I'm a big fan of Merlin and King Arthur and all that. Okay, I really don't know, guys. I did study Wicca and paganism but that's more of a Celtic Druid thing. I mean, it's pretty much same basics. Wicca is more of Earth, Mother Earth, the forest gods, horn gods, females and males. Pagan is a little bit different, more of, how you're gonna say it, like the seasons and magic, and still somewhat of the earth and stuff like that, but it's a little bit complex because people sometimes go to the other side of it because there's a left and right of it. So some people use it for different things. Stonehenge, in my opinion, they said it was almost 5,000 years old. There's an argument it's only 3,000. They're saying that there's still people, Druids, who still go there now and do ceremonies there. There's thousands of bones have been found there, so they think it was a cemetery for the dead because there's been over thousands of years. And then recently, I think they found like a mile down the way. There's another one similar to it, and they call it Blue Stonehenge. So and there was bones and stuff there. I'm thinking what my personal opinion is. Some say it was used for, summer solstice and winter solstice, the changing of the seasons. That's what that means, to winter to summer. I think there's spring and there's fall, but it's something else called. But they did it for the season. Some people think for how the lines of the stars. That's a lot of Druidism. They did a lot of things with stars, and I can't say the word. They do a lot of stuff with the signs, like that. I can't say the word right now. I can't remember it. But that's what they do. That's where you got a lot of people think that's what that was. It's a calendar. So that's what Stonehenge was. If you look at it, it looks like a clock kind of. So that kind of, because if you think about it, Stonehenge is circular. If you ever seen what it looks like, I'm trying to explain it so you guys understand. And I know there's different symbols on them, and they're kind of fading away now because it's 5,000 or there's even arguments now that they said they found it could be 5 to 1,000, even 1,000 years older than that. So I don't know exactly what it was for. My personal opinion is it was some kind of thing for ceremony for Druids. Celtic Druids. It could be a calendar back then, what they used for the time of the year, like you were saying, winter and summer solstice. It also could be both. It could have been where they buried their dead because they said they have a mile down the way, they have another one. It's similar to it, but they call it blue because I guess something a little bit different stones, like he was talking about. It could be for that. That's my opinion. Now, do I believe Merlin had anything to do with it? I'm not going to say that it's impossible. I don't believe that he did, but I'm not going to say he did. Not going to say he didn't. I've always liked the story of Merlin and King Arthur, like he was talking about dragons. And when he told me about this the other day, I was like, yeah, we could do this show tonight. Because I've always been interested. If you ever watched Sword in the Stone, that cartoon with Merlin and young King Arthur, and he pulls the sword from the stone. You know that story, guys. I also used to watch the Round Table there. I think King Arthur the movie, that was really cool. Lancelot, I think Lancelot in that movie was cheating on him with his wife, I think it was, or somebody's wife. I forget what it was. I think it might have been Arthur. And then Merlin was in it. And do I believe Merlin existed? I do. I think it's been exaggerated. I believe that he was a figure that probably existed at one time. Now, do I believe like they show, like he was talking about flames and fire and all that stuff? No. But I believe there's some truth to it. I think he knew what he was doing. I believe that this all existed. I believe dragons existed. I believe that we all forgot the old world. If you guys know what that means, I think that all these stories we have of vampires, werewolves, giants, trolls, dragons, King Arthur, Merlin, all existed, but it's been exaggerated over years, like every story, like Billy the Kid, Jesse James, Abraham Lincoln, all kinds of different stories. You go there and they have been exaggerated, twisted around. People make up all these stuff and add things to it. That's what I think happened. I believe all these things existed at one time. We dealt with it, and they were there. Another theory about Stonehenge, just to give you a thing out, that it might have been a calendar for alien activity. Around all these areas, there's a lot of sightings of aliens also. Remember that. Spaceships, UFOs. That could be another possibility. And I'm not trying to make anybody mad, because I know there's a lot of people who believe in Stonehenge and pagan and Celtic and Wicca. But there's a possibility of UFO. It was a conductor for UFO site. It was a place where UFOs might have landed. There's arguments about that. I'm not going to say I believe that. There's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Maybe that's where they met up. That's where they had certain areas where they would meet up, and that was one of them. Like the pyramids, you guys. A lot of people don't know how that got built. Then there's pyramids even in Mexico and South Africa, and not South Africa, South America, and the rainforest. There's stuff being found in the Middle East that was built inside a mountain that would be almost impossible to be built. So I would it put past it that could be the possibility. Maybe that's how the Druids got to actually learn their stuff from the aliens, just like in the Egyptian world and Atlantis before it sunk. So I believe Atlantis existed. There's too much evidence for it. But maybe this was all a point where everybody met up, and Stonehenge was like maybe there was circles, because there was different tribes or maybe different religions that met up there, and they all did some kind of ritual there. Not just summer solstice, winter solstice, and the time of the changes of seasons. Winter solstice, you know what that is, guys? More of for the winter. Usually it's December 21st. Yeah, first day. If some of you guys call it first day of winter. So that when the holidays, the season changes with the longest day, the day of the year also of that day. Don't forget that. But then it changes to the daylight savings time, and it opens it up to that. And then summer brings it off, and it's longer summer days. And just the difference of the seasons, the birds and the flowers. It's more nature-ish. But they prayed to a different, like I said, it was they said a lot of Druids, and still Druids do. They do a lot of rituals and prayers there, and some of the dead. It also could have been a burial site. It could have been there. I mean, there's proof to it. There's bones there, so it could have been a burial site for the dead. Back in think about it, 5,000 years ago, that's could have been what it is. And then somebody came along and said, we're going to do our rituals here on top of that. It could have been all of it together, guys. That's all I can say about that. That's probably more the possibility of it being built by Merlin. I wouldn't say that's impossible. It's another theory. I'm not going to, because of different rocks, there is different rocks being found there and stuff like that. That is a possibility. Could have been some place that Merlin met, because it was, I think 90 miles away from London. So something like that, 100. I don't know exact. I'm just going by there. So it could have been a place where he met up. Maybe that's where the real round table. Because if you think about it, here's the theory, guys. Remember how they said it was round table? A round table. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit because I know you guys can hear me. Maybe the round table is really Stonehenge because if you look at it, it's rounded. Maybe that's where they met up, and Merlin did his meetings there. But I mean, Merlin was probably a druid if you and so he also did, his rituals for the dead, for the seasons, astronomic. That's what I was trying to get. Astronomic numbers and with space and stuff. That's what I was trying to say earlier, guys. Like with science and stuff like that, they're all into that stuff, especially with the stars, where they align certain Venus and in different places. They have meanings to it, and maybe that's what happened, or maybe it was a place where Merlin got his power from maybe some kind of god, or maybe aliens. Maybe it's aliens met there and he met them there. Maybe that was a meeting point. Maybe that's still a meeting point for aliens. There's a lot of weird stuff. There's a lot of magnetic energy around there. It's hard to have a cell phone there. They've already said it. It just has a lot of bad frequency there. So something's there. I do believe that there's something there. I don't know what exactly for. There's always been speculations of what Stonehenge is. I know it's a place it's also a place of worship for the Druids and anybody who's into Wicca. I know a lot of people go there. So I know that it has a lot of power there, guys. And especially if some people have passed there and maybe they wanted to go there to die, and I believe that has happened. So there might be paranormal stuff at work with all this too, and throwing it, not just alien. I believe, in my honest opinion, it was built for rituals, prayer, cemetery, on all together. And I think that it was also meant for a meeting place. I don't know what for, but it's a possibility Merlin met there. It might have been made already, because Merlin was only 9 to 1,000 years old. They're saying this thing's 5 to 6,000 years old. So that would that's the only argument I'm going to have, because I don't know. I think Merlin's only 1,900 years old, maybe a little older. So maybe that's a place he found and he didn't know what it was. And then he found out what it was about. And it was abandoned then. And he took it over. But I'm just giving theories, guys. Like James said, if you have any ideas what you think it is, without being bad or arguing, please write a comment and tell us what you think. I think it's two things. What I was saying a minute ago, or it's a beacon for alien, like a center point where they meet. Because there's been sightings there, guys. That's one theory we didn't talk about. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of King Arthur and Merlin and all those stories like James. I mean, we're talking. Maybe one day this can build into doing the story about Merlin altogether, and King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, because that would be a cool show to do. This will lead up to it, because all our shows always lead up to something more than it always leads up to 2 or 3 different things we split off to, and we can do something else too. So let me know what you guys think. That's what my opinion is. Do I think Merlin made it? It's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, not made it, but he went there and did stuff. Make it, I don't know. I don't believe it. I think he might have had something. He could have helped more to it, but I think it was already made before he was even around. So there's proof of that. And I think he might have made maybe the one that's down a mile down the way and just made it and added to it. I do believe he could have added to it. He could have helped do other things to it, put symbols, put more rocks, bring other stuff from other places, build another. There's a couple of them around there too. It isn't just the blue Stonehenge. There's another one that's kind of smaller, and there's another one in another city. There's a couple all over the place. So it could have been something he added on to. I think this has just been going on for thousands of years. I don't know the exact reason, but that's just my theory, guys. I would love to visit there. I know a lot of people would. That's one of my things I want to do before I die. So is go to Stonehenge and go to Europe altogether. Go to London, Ireland, and Scotland. I'm half Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, and Italian. So I would love to go there. Anyway, to see how it is in Europe. I think James has been in Europe a couple times, so I don't know if he's been to Stonehenge. So I think that's one of the places I know he wants to go. But so I hope you guys liked what we did the show. So if you want to go ahead and leave your comments, go ahead, James. There you go, brother.
What I like to do now is leave the realm of known fact, and I want to get into the theoretical. I mean, let's really get crazy with it for a minute. Let's look at Merlin. What is Merlin known for? Amazing magic, sorcery. What is Stonehenge? It is a large stone circle. How would a person get the ability to do the kind of things that legend states that Merlin did? Well, what I would say is the most likely thing when you think about a circle, you are thinking about summoning. So here's the theoretical part. And tell me down in the comments what you think about this. Could Stonehenge have been? We know it's a place for religious ceremonies done by the Druids and other pagans. So could Stonehenge have been one very large summoning circle where ancient entities were summoned, held in that circle, and made to do the bidding of Merlin? Is that where Merlin got his power and his ability to do the magical feats that legend states that he did? Now, for this deep dive into the crazy theoretical ideas, we are assuming that the legends of Merlin were true, that he could do all the crazy sorcery stuff that legend states he could do. So if that was true, I think one way that could have been accomplished was through summoning some ancient, powerful, demonic entity and getting power from it. Whether it is making a deal or trying to force it to help you in order to release it or whatever. To me, that seems like an interesting idea, at least. I don't know how much actual truth there would be to it, but it passes the sniff test. I mean, to me, it seems like that could be a thing that could have happened. It definitely would fit the stories of Merlin. Now, as I said, to accept that theory as truth, you would have to say that all of the legends about Merlin were true. And personally, I don't believe that they were. I believe that Merlin probably existed, but I don't think that he was essentially Gandalf, is kind of the way they make him out to be in the legends. And I don't really think that he was this all-powerful sorcerer that could do all this crazy stuff. But if he could, that's one way that he could have gotten that power. Another interesting thing is, old boy mentioned aliens. And if you look at places where it is theorized that alien craft have landed, you're talking crop circles. And it's interesting that those are circular and Stonehenge is circular. Now, granted, that's definitely a reach. I'm not trying to say that just because Stonehenge is circular, that means that it is definitely an alien landing site. But it is interesting that it is circular and crop circles are essentially circular. And it's also interesting that it is a point in the earth where there's a lot of energy and a lot of magnetic energy. And it could be one of those spots where the veil between dimensions is thinner. We've talked about that on other on other shows. It could be one of those power spots where you have all kinds of bleed over from one dimension to another, and that energy could be harnessed somehow through these ceremonies that the Druish are doing in order to. Do you say Druish or is it Druids? I think it's Druids. That the Druids are doing in order to gain power or whatever they're doing in their ceremonies. Now, I want to state really quickly that when I say stuff like that, I'm not intending any kind of disrespect to any Druids that are listening. I'm ignorant about that religion. I have no idea. I've heard of them. I know a few things, but I'm not in any way an expert on Druids or paganism or anything like that. So when I'm talking, I'm just kind of talking. You know what I mean? I'm not the authority on it. So take what I'm saying there with a grain of salt. But I think it's a very interesting idea. And I also think it's interesting if you look at some of the drawings of what they believe Atlantis looked like. Atlantis was a city that was made up of circular rings. And Old Boy kind of tied the two together earlier. And it's interesting that they both have those circular rings in them. So could there be something to that? Because when you hear about Atlantis, a lot of the legends of Atlantis talk about an advanced civilization that had unbelievable power and could do things that seem like magic because of their technology. So could it be that the ancient civilizations had technology that we don't understand right now because we went a different way? That technology was kind of forgotten and we went a different way. And they had stuff with crystals and they had stuff with magnetic points in the earth, using the Earth's own magnetism and gravity to power things. Could it be that somehow ties into Stonehenge and why it is in the place that it is in and why it is in the shape that it's in? It is a way to somehow harness that power coming from the earth. I don't know if that's true or not, but it interests me. I think that there could be something to it because there has to be a reason why the Druids use that place. There has to be some sort of power there. I understand that the way it's set up, that the sunrise comes in on the summer solstice. I get that. So that's perfect for your ritual thing you're doing if it's the summer solstice ritual. That makes sense. But I would think that there has to be some more reason behind it. One thing that's interesting is the fact that there's a lot of high magnetic points in that area. Old Boy talked about it was difficult to get reception on a cell phone there, that it was hard to get that stuff to work in that area. And that could have something to do with it. Could the Druids have figured out a way in ancient times of harnessing the magnetism of the earth to power whatever kind of spells or ceremonies that they were attempting to do? If you look at the writings of Tesla, right, Nikola Tesla, he talks a lot about magnetism and the untapped potential power that the Earth's own magnetism contains. So we're not out in loony land here. I mean, Tesla was a genius, and there is solid science behind what he was theorizing. And if the Druids were able to tap into that and harness that energy, who knows what they could do with it? See, that's the thing about ancient technology and even alien technology that we don't understand. We don't know how it works. We don't know what it did. We don't know what it was. If they developed technology based on the magnetism of the earth, that's not something we're doing. So we have no idea how it would work or what it would be. So we really have no idea what they would be capable of. And you might say, well, how would these ancient people figure that out? They're a bunch of savages, basically. Well, think about this. They were able to set up Stonehenge so that the sunrise would shine perfectly through it during the summer solstice. The ancient Egyptians were able to set up pyramids directly on high energy points and magnetic points of the planet so that certain stars would shine through during certain times of the year through little bitty holes that they had cut into the pyramid to shine directly down into a chamber they wanted to shine into and essentially light up a great deal of the inside of the pyramid. That's mind-blowing. We couldn't do that today. There's no way we could figure out how to do that today. But yet these people did it. And they did it over and over and over again. We're talking multiple different pyramids, whether it's the Egyptians, whether it is the Aztecs. You had even talk about pyramids up in Antarctica. There's so much cool stuff that they were able to do that we just can't figure out. And so before anyone says, well, they were just savages, they wouldn't be able to figure out this advanced technology, you don't know what they're capable of because they can do things that we can't do today. And when we can perfectly replicate everything that they were able to do, then I will entertain the idea that they weren't bright enough to figure these things out. But until that time, I mean, the way I look at it, they're smarter than we are because they could do things that we could never even think about doing. I mean, they brought a full engineering crew and a full construction company with high-tech cranes and everything to try to recreate building a pyramid the way the Egyptians did it, and they couldn't do it. Now, you got to think, these people back in Egyptian times, they didn't have engines. They didn't have cranes like we have cranes that were capable of picking something up and putting it on top of a skyscraper and stuff. They didn't have that. We have that, but we couldn't do what they did. So that should tell you something. But anyway, this has been a fun show, and I really enjoy sitting here and talking about Arthur and Merlin and all of these old civilizations. I love this stuff. So let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of it and any theories that you might have, if you agree or disagree with some of the theories that we brought up tonight. And with that being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy to get his final sum up and his shout-outs.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Just so everybody knows, I kind of have there's a similar theory too what James was talking about with crystals, because crystals is the way of energy, and I believe there might have been a thing about he was talking about summoning something, or maybe the Druids did, or they got a certain that's a part of the earth that has the most energy, and that's where they get it from, and that circle. Just think about it. Just give us an idea. And when I try to explain things, sometimes I'm not a teacher where I can talk right. I sometimes I mess up my words, so don't think I don't know what I'm talking about. I do. James knows it, or wouldn't be me doing the show with me. So I just want people to know I just don't explain stuff the best. So and I hope you guys enjoyed the show on Parax Radio every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. Eastern time. If you guys want to check out any of our merch, he'll tell you where to go. Shirts, COVID masks, hoodies, all kinds of cool stuff. You want to listen to all the old shows and listen to this show because it'll be on before. We're trying to do it where we put the show before we do the show. We're trying to do it where we can put the show after PRX Radio, but sometimes he gets it done early. So, but you can follow James Hershey on his YouTube page, subscribe, and you can listen to all the great shows. It's all free content. As long as we're running it, you're getting free content. So we enjoy the comments. Tell us the shows you would like to hear. Anything else, any ideas, we would love to know. So that being said, I hope everybody's enjoying the new month of March. Spring's coming soon. So you know what that means. Daylight savings, I think it's next week. So I hope everybody's enjoying their time. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster hunters, and demon lovers, I love you and blessed be and have a great night.
I, for one, am stoked that spring is coming. I'm not a guy that hates winter. I actually like winter too. The only thing I don't like about winter is I live up here in the mountains, and there's a lot of snow, and it gets cold, and I hate it when the pipes freeze. That's the only thing that sucks. But I don't mind the cold. But I'm super stoked about spring coming because I cannot wait to get back down into my orchard and start planting more trees. And I want to get some good gardens done this year. I've got like 30 acres. There's a lot of land here. So I got a lot of area that I can plant. And I don't do things with tractors and plows and all that. I do everything the old ways with basically a shovel and a hoe and all that. Do it all by hand. And I'm really looking forward to getting out there and growing some awesome veggies and just spending that time out in nature. I love that stuff, man. There's nothing that is better for your soul than to spend a little bit of time out in God's playground like that. For me, it's almost a spiritual thing. It's so beautiful to get out there and to take a little tiny seed, just this little minuscule seed, little bit of nothing, and put it in some dirt, cover it up, put some water on it, and wait. And the amazing thing is that all of the information that a little seed needs to become a mighty oak tree is right there in that acorn. All of it. That giant oak tree is in that acorn. All of the information to grow that is there. Same thing with every seed you plant, whether it's watermelon or squash or pickles, well, cucumbers to make pickles. Anything you plant, it's the same way. This tiny little seed becomes a plant that grows vegetables and fruits that can nourish your body. It's absolutely amazing. And you'll never be closer to God than you are when you're out working a garden or something like that, and in my opinion. Now, I don't mean that to be blasphemous. I know people go to church. I go to church too. I like church. Nothing wrong with church. I read the Bible all the time. You know, I've read the Bible cover to cover dozens of times. So believe me, I'm a Christian, and I 100% know that the Word of God is the Word of God. But what I'm saying is, I find a lot of peace working out in my garden and in the orchards and stuff like that. It makes my heart happy, if that makes sense. But anyway, time for shameless plugs. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. You've got every episode of Staring into the Abyss, every episode of Tales from the Abyss, the TV show we do. Every episode of Paranormal News is there. I have put up all kinds of different paranormal and mythology and lore audiobook kind of stuff that I'm doing now. There's just tons of cool stuff there. It's kind of your one-stop shop for paranormal content. It's all 100% free, and it is all very well researched. So go there and enjoy it. It's there for you to take advantage of and to enjoy. Please subscribe to the channel and let me know down in the comments of the videos if there's anything else that you would like to see. You know, any subject matters you'd like us to cover or anything like that, and we'll try to make it happen. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's TESPRING.com/store with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. There's tons of different things there. You've got t-shirts, hoodies, you've got masks, you've got pillows, posters, blankets, coffee mugs, everything. Tons of stuff. There's all kinds of different designs. We have, of course, the Staring Eye, our logo, and then we also have all kinds of different horror-themed designs that we've come up with, and just all kinds of really cool stuff. The quality is really, really good, and the prices are really, really fair. We don't make much at all off the store because I have the prices just over cost so that you guys, if you want merch, can get merch. So that's where you can get that. I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us again this week and for inviting us into your home or your car or wherever you listen at, and just for going along with us on this journey and talking about subject matter that we really love and enjoy talking about. And I'm glad that you enjoy listening, and I hope that you continue to do so. With that being said, I will catch you guys on the next episode. Until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
Tell me, are you scared tonight? Do you see monsters on the wall? And all the ghosts that haunt your mind, that keeps saying you will fall. I know it's dark, but